Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. It is July 13th, and we are here to talk about the planets that have stationed retrograde. As of right now, Neptune is retrograde in Aries, and Saturn today is stationing retrograde in Aries. And then on the 17th, Mercury will station retrograde in Leo. And this is what I'd like to say about retrograde planets. Um, Before we would always make a really big deal about things going retrograde and that, everything was going to be flying off the rails. Retrograde periods are actually, to me, a great time. There's a lot of energy there because we're going back over the seeds that we have planted. And maybe this is a good time that we can see things that we missed or things that we didn't know was going to be a problem or something that we had to take care of. And this would be, and it comes up. So it's like, oh, good, I have to take care of this in order for things to move slowly going forward. So in this retrograde period is going to be extra strong because of Neptune and Saturn both being retrograde in Aries. I love that Mercury is going retrograde in Leo, because it talk about holding our feet to the fire, right? And really going over what we're listening to and how we're communicating. Um, I was doing some journaling this morning and it was coming through with Uranus moving into Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Gemini is how we communicate. And we're really coming into this time. It said that basically spells would be broken. And I do not know, honestly, a lot about dark magic or black magic. I know a little bit. It's not what I spend my time studying. But what I have learned is that those magical spells or instruments do not have a long time. They don't have a long shelf life. So, in order for them to keep working, um, the practitioners have to keep working the quote unquote magic or the quote unquote spell, or however you'd like to say it. Um, and you can go down the rabbit hole the different ways that they do this, right? So, but with Uranus moving into Gemini, it's going to be harder for um, those quote unquote spells or those ways that people were doing that. It's going to be harder because that Uranus energy is going to start breaking all that up, as well as really making us start to focus on what it is that we consume, what it is that we say, how we do communicate, how we get our communications. Um, my friend and I were just talking yesterday about AI and how so many people don't know about the amount of energy it takes to use AI. And if people just knew that, they probably wouldn't be so gung-ho on using it. And the fact that everyone keeps pushing, oh, you should just use AI, but really no one really understands the environmental impact on that, on top of the fact that, I Googled something right before I came on and it said, this is generated by AI. I'm not asking for it to be generated by AI. And then it said it could be wrong, right? And so we're really going to go over, especially with Mercury turning retrograde in Leo, what it is that we use, right, to present ourselves, right? How we show up, what we're listening to and consuming, and what we're talking about to inspire us. Because Leo at its highest level is that heart energy, and it is our solar plexus, it is our self-esteem. And Leo's been quiet for a couple years. Like I remember saying that, like not much is happening in Leo. The four fixed signs were really taking it on the chin when Uranus when moved into Taurus, right? And I believe, I just believe now, this is just how I believe. And so now that Uranus has moved into the mutable signs are really going to get a workout, right? Because such a big energy of Uranus, it can't just be affecting um, one sign, right? And so because Uranus was in Taurus while it was affecting Taurus the most, all the fixed signs were getting affected by the energy of Uranus. And now that Uranus has moved into Gemini, the mutable signs are going to start getting affected. Could be good, could be bad, right? We've got 7 years or so to work through this energy of Uranus. And the way that I see the mutable signs is the mutable signs um, hold space for us, or give us that space to try things out, right? Fixed signs is that fixed energy. Um, Mutable signs gives us that space to, try a few things out before making a decision on which way to go. Cardinal signs, initiate. So here we are. Uranus is going in there. And if we were being quote unquote, I don't want to say, let's just say, if we were being quote unquote fooled with the right ways to communicate, or, this is the only way to do it, or um, fooled in the sense that, things were being fed to us that were shaping things, or moving things to go in a different way more than what we wanted, and we couldn't figure out why, that's going to start breaking that energy up. Uranus is like lightning, right? Uranus is the disruptor. So it's going to start breaking that energy up. We're going to start catching on, right? It was like Uranus going through Taurus and just tearing up all that fixed earth of basically the patriarchy, and how we weren't valuing ourselves, right? Because Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is our self-worth, right? And just tearing up that entire way of this is the only way that you're worthy, this is the only way that you're supposed, this is the only way that you have self-worth, this is the only way, and just tore it all up. The women's movement came in um loud and clear on that when it hit 2018, 2019, and just kept bulldozing right through there, right? And so now Uranus has moved into Gemini, and it's really going to start focusing on how we see duality, how we talk about duality, if the idea of duality is bad. I kind of seen us moving out of duality when I can see things in a higher spiritual way. Does that mean we're there? Not exactly. So with Uranus moving into Gemini, it's really going to start putting this focus on how we communicate, what's been communicated to us, um, if it's been in our best interest, right? And moving that into uh, Mercury going retrograde on the 17th in the sign of Leo. It'll be retrograde until August 11th. So it's going to be in Leo the entire time, even in once we move into Leo season. So it'll start in Cancer season and then still be retrograde as we move into Leo season. Um, And really, it's going to start focusing on what we're communicating to ourselves, right? And how are we communicating to others? And are we being an inspiration? Or are we communicating with just fear and complete caca, right? What are we doing? As my friend Allison always says, how did we get here? Right? So we're really going to be focusing on that with this Mercury retrograde in Leo. And this is coinciding very well with the fact that Saturn is stationing retrograde today. Saturn will be retrograde up until November 27th, but it will be retrograde in Aries until September 1st. And then in September 1st, it will move back into Pisces. And Neptune will also move back into Pisces, but Neptune will turn direct first, go back into Aries, and then um, Saturn will follow. Okay, so let's talk about Saturn going retrograde in Aries right now. The main thing that came to mind was accountability. So, Aries, cardinal fire, the self. Saturn, the idea of boundaries, the idea of getting things done. So it's going to start calling in accountability. And we have to remember, which actually just came to me right now, the idea that both Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which is cardinal fire, and then Mercury going retrograde in Leo, which is fixed fire, right? This is a lot of fire. We're going to really have to start paying attention to, I can't, like what really motivates us? Do we get motivated because we allow ourselves to get gaslit? Do we get motivated because we want a better world? Do we get motivated because, um, we think we there is a hope. There's a lot going to be pinpointed on this. And this idea of accountability is already coming in fast and furious, right? And I can see that. I don't watch a lot of news just for my own mental health. But this idea of, all the ICE raids and people being horrified by them, which they should be. And then they were showing these podcasters being saying things like, "Well, I didn't vote for this," and I feel like I'm a good person because it did not gaslight me right away, and I was just kind of sitting with it, and I was like, I wonder if like the country just gives people that say that a pass, or if there is some sort of gentle way that they actually do have to take accountability for this. And the one thing that we cannot outrun was the fact that Project 2025 was always out there. So, um, the idea of people saying they didn't vote for this really isn't going to cut the mustard, if you will, right? And the idea of taking accountability for yourself can be big things like that. It could even be small things like, right now I'm hungry because I haven't gone to the grocery store, right? I need to take accountability for that. I need to go get my goddamn groceries because then I wouldn't be hungry and wondering what I could be eating for snacks. So it runs the gambit. It runs the gambit. And the beautiful thing with Neptune being retrograde in the sign of Aries, that helps us stay away from the illusion, right? So we're bringing in this idea of accountability. We're bringing in this idea of disillusionment, seeing things for how they are. Um, Neptune is the idea of Neptune being illusion and dreams. If you keep that at a higher realm, that's really beautiful. But if you go into that lower realm of Neptune, that is the like the illusion of not seeing reality. It's addiction. Um, it's not taking accountability, right? And so we are at this crossroad where all these things are coming in and they're churning and they're not going to stop. And I really want you guys to understand. I know like the that bill they just passed. And now people are like, "Well, I didn't know that was on the bill." And that's not going to fly, right? People aren't people have to start taking accountability, and it's going to come in one way of one form or the other, right? So I don't want you guys to get disheartened um, or disillusioned because you think accountability is supposed to look like one thing. The accountability is here. The universe is saying it's right here. Saturn just went stationing retrograde, so they can't get out of it. Um, and just because we want it to look a certain way and it's not looking that way doesn't mean that it's not happening. Okay. So I want you guys to really keep that in your hearts, especially with Mercury turning retrograde in Leo. Be sure you speak kind, beautiful words to your heart. You should do that every day, not just during this retrograde period. So I think I'm going to leave it there, just a short video. Um, to really start to see with Saturn stationing today, Neptune already stationed retrograde, Mercury on the 17th, it will station retrograde. And you guys, give yourself the time and the grace to let the planets turn, let the planets station. I was on Instagram the other day and someone had made a meme or whatever about the full moon in Capricorn. And it was like full moon in Capricorn in, Saturn stationing retrograde and Mercury, or Saturn retrograde and Mercury retrograde. And none of those things had happened. The full moon was on the 10th. Yesterday is 3 days later. Um, and it's just stationing. Okay, that just means it's coming to a stop. Tomorrow it'll go retrograde. 7 days out was because now it's the 13th. 7 days out was Mercury stationing retrograde. Okay. I know everyone wants to be the first to the finish line or to put this information out there. But at this time of Mercury turning retrograde, I implore you to make sure the people that you're following and listening to are speaking to your heart, um, are breaking things down, are helping you move forward, right? And really, I really would like for you to really pay attention to what it is that you're consuming and ingesting and listening to, what you're thinking about. Start taking that accountability for the self, right? Start taking that accountability that you can have the life that you want, right? The illusion that things have to be a certain way, right? Let that fall away with Neptune turning retrograde in Aries. Initiate those dreams that you do want to have and initiate that idea of like, I don't have to believe that. I don't need to think that that's the only way things are. The world really is awash in love and kindness and good because I see it every day and I hear about it every day. And one last thing I would like to say that seems to be just kind of keeps presenting itself to me, and how to relay it to you guys. Um, and I'm thinking of um, Gaza in particular, because that is such a hornet's nest. And there have been lots of leaps and bounds on how we're speaking about that, which is beautiful. The ideas of, even with Ukraine, okay, the ideas of wars and suffering, um, we don't see that, like, and even like deporting people in this mass and alligator, Alcatraz, all that stuff. That is not vibing with the majority of the people, right? And I watched this little thing on, I can't think of her name, knitting culture or knitting, but anyway, she was making the point that um, when people actually join the military, like the US military, they actually become, and let's say they went in there with prejudice, they actually become less prejudiced because of the training that they get through the military. And so, and one of the things that they do swear an oath to is the Constitution. So that is why DT is trying to make this other military presence because he can't use ours because most of them see through the bullshit. Um, that being said, sorry, I got a little off track, but about going back to like, why isn't the thing stopping? Why isn't, Netanyahu getting out of power, all this stuff in there, he's almost there because there's almost that tipping point within his own people. These movements. And so for us to hold space, keep holding space for that tipping point to happen. But these movements do not take off, and things really don't start to happen until the tipping point. The women's movement didn't take off until X amount of number of women got it and they got on board. Men aren't going to get there. They've got to get there because they've got to start taking that accountability for themselves. Then that'll turn it. All these other movements, that we can be good allies and step up with and talk about, they don't get that momentum until there's that tipping point. And I think I'm pretty I don't want to say I think, I'm pretty sure that's where we are with Gaza. And if you're like, but what? There has to be that tipping point within itself. That's what starts it going. So, keep doing those world peace meditations. I mean, for everywhere in the world, not just for that. Same with Ukraine, you know, um, things that are happening in Africa. You guys keep those meditations. What was it? I think my mom told me, Sterling said, like we all have to be rowing in the same direction. And so if you can just do those meditations, you know, on world peace or however you want to put it in your mind, especially at this time with Saturn going retrograde, and we can have that accountability, Neptune being retrograde. There is that disillusionment will come in so we can get in these new ways of thinking and speaking, right? Uranus and Gemini, the idea coming out of nowhere, Uranus, the revolution, right? The disruptor coming in quickly like a lightning bolt. And then Mercury retrograde in Leo, higher Leo is the heart, right? And the left eye, right? It is that, even though we see fire signs as masculine, but the left eye is representative of the feminine, right? And so receiving with love what we see, putting it into that energy of fire and pushing it out there. Okay, friends, now I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, like and subscribe, all that stuff, share with your friends. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday.